Hello, welcome back. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. Our headlines. Ethiopia is in mourning. At least 52 people were killed in a stampede after police clashed with anti-government protesters in the Oromia region. Despite promises of openness, Gabon's new government doesn't include major opposition leaders, with notably no room for allies of defeated presidential candidate Jean Ping. And we'll take you to Zambia, where, following in the footsteps of the legendary Esther Piri, more and more girls are entering the boxing ring. But we are starting off with news just in from Mali. A UN peacekeeper has been killed in an attack in the volatile extreme north of the country in the Kidal region. Several other peacekeepers were injured from a contingent of Chadian troops. We can cross straight away and get more on this with our correspondent Francois Riohet in Mali. Francois, what more details do you have about this attack?
Well, according to the deputy spokesman for the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali, or MINUSMA here tonight, the attack occurred around 2 p.m. today when several mortars hit the Blue Helmets camp of Aguelok in the region of Kidal. The Chadians Blue Helmets quick reaction force immediately left the camp after being hit by these mortars. The aim of this quick reaction force was to find out where the mortars had been shot from, but their convoy then struck at least one mine or improvised explosive device. The explosion blew 2 vehicles up. Several peacekeepers have been reportedly wounded, 5 of them severely injured and 1 killed by the explosion. That's what the deputy spokesman for the UN mission says tonight. Aguelok is located in the remote region of Kidal in the northeast of the country, and the neighboring mountainous Adrar des Iforas is believed to host several Islamist militant groups still active, especially Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb and Ansar Din. Since the beginning of their mandate in Mali in July 2013, more than 70 peacekeepers have been killed by hostile action, according to the UN.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that update there, Francois Riohet in Mali. Protests and unrest have continued in Ethiopia a day after more than 50 people died in a stampede triggered when police cracked down on demonstrators. Violent scenes broke out at a religious festival in the town of Bishoftu in the Oromia region. After some protesters chanted anti-government slogans, police fired tear gas and rubber bullets, and in the ensuing stampede, several people suffocated and fell into a ditch. Authorities say 52 people were killed, but protesters put the death toll much higher than that. Well, I've got more on the situation in Ethiopia with Felix Horn, the Ethiopia Senior Researcher for Human Rights Watch, and I asked him about the roots of the anti-government anger in the Oromia region.
The protests that started in November were very much about the concern from Oromos that they would be displaced from the expansion that was happening to the capital, to Addis Ababa, something that has been happening over the last 10 years. Very quickly, when security forces would meet those peaceful protests with violence, the concerns of the protesters shift to decades of concerns over discrimination against the Oromo, of lack of economic opportunities, of the various human rights abuses that we've seen during the protests, which includes the use of live ammunition against the protesters, mass arrests, and torture and detention. So what happened on Sunday was very much there was a lot of tension that had been built up over the previous months on both sides. So it took a very small trigger to cause such panic in such a large crowd.
And we've seen in other regions of Ethiopia too, anti-government feeling, anger building up, frustration among ethnic groups at the ruling classes. How serious is the situation?
I mean, it's very serious. I mean, this is the biggest human rights and political crisis since this government came to power. And what is of real concern is that every time people go out to protest peacefully, to express legitimate grievances, security forces meet this with violence. And that just guarantees that there'll be future protests and future bloodshed. So it's a real critical time. It's not the point of no return yet, but it's getting close to that point where there's such mistrust of government that any concessions that the government would make might be too little too late.
Where do you see this going from here? Are these just isolated protests or more of a movement? Do you see it escalating from here?
Yeah, I definitely see it escalating. I mean, in Oromia, it's been quite consistent since November. There's been different peaks and valleys, but the protests have been quite consistent. What we feared is that if things did get violent at the Erecha cultural festival, which is such an important event for Oromo, that we would see an uptake in the amount of protests. And that's certainly what we have seen today. There's been protests all across Oromia, various reports of killings at the hands of security forces coming in. So it's a very worrying juncture for Ethiopia.
Next, despite promising a political opening up, the new government of Gabon has been announced and there are very few opposition politicians involved. The lineup doesn't include any representatives of opposition leader Jean Ping, who claims the recent hotly disputed presidential election was rigged. Nicolas Germain has more.
A little more than a month after Ali Bongo's controversial re-election, Gabon's Prime Minister announced his new cabinet. It has 40 members, nearly a third of them are women.
Naturally, this cabinet includes members of the ruling party, but also members of the opposition, as well as leaders from civil society.
Ali Bongo had promised to open up the government to opposition leaders, but none of the major ones joined him. His biggest catch was Bruno Ben Moubamba, who got less than 1% of the vote in the presidential election. Bongo's main rival, Jean Ping, doesn't recognise his victory. Ping's spokesman told us this new government was not representative of the people. He also commented on a French newspaper's allegations that the authorities wiretapped EU observers during the election.
In Gabon, we're not surprised by this wiretapping story, but it shows the rest of the world what we've been saying for a long time. This is a dictatorship. The Gabonese people knew this, and now the international community knows that the phones here are tapped.
Alain-Claude Bilibinze, who retained his position as communications minister, said the newspaper was trying to create a smokescreen, and he accused some EU observers of backing the opposition.
Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye was arrested after touching down back in the country at Entebbe International Airport. He was driven away by police and then escorted to his home in Kampala. Many of Besigye's supporters had gathered outside the airport to greet him. Besigye had been granted bail and travelled to London. He had been imprisoned for treason after declaring that he won February's presidential election, widely criticised as rigged. It saw incumbent Yoweri Museveni return to power. Now to Zambia, where ever since Esther Piri broke boundaries by becoming the country's first ever female boxing champion, more and more young Zambian women are entering the ring, hoping to emulate her 7 world titles and her amazing personal success story. Caroline Dumais and Stefan Carstens filed this report.
In Zambia, women's boxing has become increasingly popular. The Olympic Youth Development Centre of Lusaka is hoping to make medalists out of these young athletes. Juliana, now 18 years old, qualified for the Zambian squad. But her dream is much bigger.
Maybe one day I can turn professional to be like Esther Piri, the champion. She's a model for me. That's why I'm always focusing that why can't I do it? They are doing it.
As a 7-time world champion, Esther Piri is the country's most famous athlete. From a fruit seller to a boxing star, she's proud to be a role model for young girls.
I've managed to change someone's life through boxing. First thing I would like to say, everything you want to do things, it's about discipline, be focused, don't listen what people they are saying, as long as you know the end of the day what you want.
Esther is a natural-born fighter, and her career is not over. Her management team is discussing her next fight, and for her long-time sponsor, any match is a winner.
When Esther fights, the whole nation comes to a standstill. It's normally filmed live on the national channel. Esther Piri's fight is there. No one misses it.
After big events, young girls always come and sign up. There are 12 boxing clubs in Lusaka. The oldest, the legendary Exodus Boxing Academy, is always full. This is where Esther's former trainer, Anthony Mwamba, started it all. And the road was not easy.
In our constitution, they were not allowing female boxers to participate, to fight. Until we took it even to the parliament, and they allowed for the female boxers to participate.
Attitudes towards women's boxing have shifted. Juliana's mother respects her daughter's choice, even if she still does not want to watch.
She used to be scared. She said that, what if someone punches you a hard punch and I'm there? No, I can't. I just bring photos for her. She sees the photos. She's always happy.
As more women enter the ring, boxing becomes more than just a sport, but a potential means of upliftment.
And that's where we'll have to leave you. Join us next time for Eye on Africa.